for tuning in. In this episode, we're going to teach you all about, what are we going to learn about?
We're going to learn how to set up and break down your RV campsite. Some hopefully good tips for beginners.
Yes, for beginners. Now, to be honest with you, we've only done this for about 2 years, but we have actually towed it to about 50 sites, I'm going to guesstimate.
Probably close to that.
Roughly 50 sites, and we've probably towed it over 10,000 miles. So we want to first tell you that we always stay at RV parks, so this is really more about how you would set up an RV park. We've done some mooch docking, but we haven't, what do they call it, dry camped?
We haven't dry camped. We all
boondocking or whatever.
We've had hookups everywhere, at least water and electric.
So this is in particular is how we set up at an RV park. The first thing we do is when we pull up to our site, before we even try to pull into it, we like to kind of survey the situation, find out where the hookups are and where we need to be on the site. Gina gets a walkie-talkie and I have a walkie-talkie. We prefer to use the walkie-talkies because we're not always guaranteed we'll have a good cell signal. And she helps me back in if it's a back-end site. Do you want to say anything about that?
Just, it's always an adventure, and you have to be prepared to be a little bit annoyed at each other.
Yeah, there's times when it gets pretty exciting, when it isn't going well. We have to say sorry and all that good stuff right. Afterwards.
And it always seems when things aren't going well, you have an audience. We'd like to take a moment just to ask that you maybe consider subscribing and liking this video. It helps us make more content.
So I'm looking down at my list here. After that, the next thing we do is once we've got it into the site, so I'd say number 2 is take one last survey before you start really setting down routes. And that is to make sure you got it where you want it. Where will your electric reach, your water reach, your sewer lines reach? Is the slide clear of any obstacles? The third thing we do is level side to side. Gina, tell them about that.
Well, what we normally do is go ahead and get out our level. We just keep a level right in the storage compartment of the camper and put that in just to see where we are. And sometimes we don't need to do anything. Sometimes we do need to come up a little bit on one side or the other. So we'll get out the Anderson blocks if we do need to do a little bit of leveling, and again using our walkie-talkies so we can communicate.
What she'll do is she'll tell me to pull forward and tell me when to stop when it's level. So she just keeps an eye on the level. So we don't have anything fancy. We just use a carpenter's level and walkie-talkies along with the Anderson blocks to bring up the low side.
One thing I want to interject really quickly is for safety purposes. I always mention if I'm getting ready to reach underneath to put the blocks in. I make sure that Tommy's aware that I'm getting ready to reach under so he doesn't go forward or backwards while my hand is under there.
The next thing we do after that is we chalk the trailer so it's not going to move. Now the Anderson blocks essentially act as chocks, but then we put chocks on the other tires, and we even put in X chocks. The X chocks not only help it from rolling, but it kind of helps the rocking motion minimize that when we're actually living in the trailer. So those are kind of nice. After that, we unhook the truck, and that's when it's time to level front to back. So Gina again mans the level, and I just stand at the tongue jack and either raise it or lower it, and she yells when it's time to stop and it's level. The next step after that is we lower the stabilizer jacks. We use leveling blocks. We've decided we like to stack quite a few under it so the stabilizer jacks don't have to extend too far. We find that there's less motion if they're not overextended. The next step is to hook up electricity. We like to do that because then Gina can get inside, turn on the AC if it's hot, get the slide pulled out so she can start setting up the inside, and she'll talk more about that a little bit later. As far as hooking up the electricity, I have an EMS, instead of just a surge protector, which I suppose is fine, I like to use the EMS. It's let us know when we have open ground. It's supposedly also, I've never had an issue with it, but when it's low voltage, which is supposedly hard on your air conditioner, so I like the EMS system. I lock it to the pedestal so it doesn't disappear on me. I have an external one, and I've hooked that in first, turn on the power. When it says everything's good, I go ahead and hook up the electricity, the cable to the EMS, and then the other end to the RV. Actually, I put it in the RV first and then to the EMS. I do have an extension cable. There has been one instance where I had to use that. You would hate to be in a location where your cable can't reach the pedestal. And I also have lots of different attachments. There was an instance where the 30 amp outlet wasn't any good, had an open ground, but the 50 amp was fine, so I just hooked up to that and I had an adapter for that. The next step for me on the outside, at this point, Gina's gonna be on the inside working. Like I said, we'll talk about what she does in a moment. I continue to work on the outside. I hook up the city water, and I like to use a pressure regulators. In some campgrounds we've been, they've actually even told us to use one because their pressure is so high. We don't want to do any damage to our plumbing inside the RV, so we always use one whether it's suggested or not. I also just use one of those blue, sort of inexpensive filters we get at Walmart. It helps get sediment and some, generally filter the water, but we don't drink directly from the tap. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. We have, I believe, called a zero water filter that we use, and so once the water's all hooked up, I usually do start going ahead and filtering water for us to use, and it's super simple. That's really a lot more economical and environmentally friendly rather than using a lot of bottled water.
And we also make our ice from that, and our coffee, pretty much any water we're ingesting, we put it through that filter. Finally, the last thing for me is I connect the sewer hose. I primarily like to do that last because I want to go in and wash my hands afterwards. I usually wear latex gloves when I do that. One thing about that is I have several sewer hoses. That's the thing I've probably used the most. I think there was one time we had to use all 3 of the sewer hoses we had. Most cases 2. In this particular site, we only needed 1. We also, I honestly don't know what you call it, but we have the accordion sort of structure that holds the hose, and it gives it a gradient so it's not like you don't get a low point where stuff gets stuck. And I know that some RV parks require that.
There's a couple more things I'd like to mention about the sewer hose. First of all, I'd like to keep all the sewer hose attachments and the sewer hoses in a separate container from anything else. We carry 3 sewer hoses with us, one of which we keep in the rear bumper. We do that in case we are using a dump station and we don't want to have to fish a sewer hose out of the container. We also carry a plastic wrench that is designed to fit various different size caps on the sewer in case it's too tight. I would also suggest getting a clear elbow where you attach to the sewer so you can see what's happening when you're dumping, so you know when you're completely done. Now, the clear elbow has threads on it that typically match the threads on the sewer pipe, but sometimes they don't fit. The sewer pipe might be stripped or something, so we carry a rubber gasket with us to help get a good seal.
Okay, do you want to talk about anything about what you do to set up the inside? Because that's pretty much the outside. By that point, it's all set up outside.
While Tommy is working on all of the things that he does outside after we've gotten the truck unhitched and all the leveling done, then I generally go inside and start just getting the inside set up. Well, we've looked at how Tommy sets up the outside, and so this is kind of how we travel. We do have the slide already out right now, but one lesson that I learned from trying to set up the bed outside of our house, we don't have a big driveway where we can put the slide out, so I just bring all the bedding with us, and then I can make the bed once the slide's out. That's really saved a lot of hassle and just made it a lot easier. And so over here for the sink, what we usually do, I have this tub in here that's for washing dishes too, and I have this little bungee cord where I put it through the coffee maker. This I just saved from when we bought it. And then this side actually did come loose. I need to put another hook over there, so that's just a little bit of tape holding that. But that so far worked really well. In the bathroom area, that's how we have our store our trash for travel. We just bungee cord that onto the strap that holds the bathroom closed. You can see we put the shower head down because it usually would fall down anyway. Ice maker is stored here on the floor, and the bath mat just in here. So this is pretty simple. We can do it pretty quickly. That's it.
Now, as far as breaking down camp, that's always fun. I like to flush the black tank. Some RV parks won't allow you to do it, but if it's not a problem, the first thing I do is I hook up a separate water hose. I don't use the same water hose I use for our water that's coming into the RV. I hook it up and start the black tank flush, and I will generally dump the black tank a couple times, like fill it totally up, dump. So I dump it, fill it, dump it, fill it, dump it. That takes time, so while that's going on, I start working on other things like disconnecting the water from the RV. I climb up and check the slide to make sure there's no debris on top of it. If it is, I sweep it off. Afterwards, Gina pulls the slide in. I then pull up the stabilizing jacks because their really primary purpose is to keep from shimmying around, but we're no longer in the RV, so that's not a big deal. I'll even hook up the truck after I've put up the stabilizer jacks. At that point, usually the black tank flush is complete. I then dump the gray tank. While the gray tank is draining, I will pull out chocks, just basically get everything ready to go. At that point, I keep the sewer hoses in a separate container from the cables, the electrical cables and the water, the fresh water hose, etc. And all that gets put away. Gina grabs the walkie-talkies. I'm in the truck by now. She tells me, does a light check. I turn on the turn signals, the brakes, everything looks good there. I then will set my destination on my GPS and hook up the backup camera. I like that primarily not for backing up, but while we're driving down the highway, I use it as a form of rear view mirror to give us more visibility all around. I turn on tow haul mode and off we go.
While Tommy is working on the outside of the camper, things that I do on the inside to get ready for travel is put the trash can back into the bathroom. I usually use the bath mat as a kind of a cushion to protect the floor under that. We have an ice maker that's normally on the kitchen countertop, and I've just put that in. That also holds the trash can in place. I put the coffee maker back behind the sink, just in general secure all of the loose items that are in the trailer and get everything ready for travel.
It's amazing watching how she gets it all put in there. It's like wedged in. She uses the rug and various towels and stuff so things aren't bumping around and scraping things up. In the shower, she'll take the we've installed a rack to put our shampoo and stuff on. All that goes into the floor of the shower so it's not bouncing around. The idea is to try to get it set up so it could survive, I don't know, a 8.0 earthquake. So, so it's not just tearing the heck out of everything.
And it sounds like it's a lot and a big ordeal, but it's once we've done it a couple times, it's very, very routine and automatic and not very time consuming at all to get everything organized and just keep everything intact.
By the time I walk out the door, we're on the road probably within 30 minutes. It's just kind of like a well choreographed routine that comes easy after a while, but the first time, the first time out of the season is awkward. You're forgetting what to do. We have to kind of remind each other of things we need to do. Everything from how to hook up the hitch properly, we double check each other. I would recommend you both learn each other's routine and kind of look behind each other. Thanks for watching.